Well, let's head back to Texas, folks, for another massacre. Let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're all doing well out there. And yes, today we're going to talk about the brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film that dropped on Netflix on Friday morning. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe. Join me here. I really would appreciate that. Click on the little notification bell. That way, every time I upload a video, you'll get notified. You can come back and see just what in the hell is going on over here. But last night, I got to sit down with my buddy Dale_A from the Bat and Spider podcast. Check him out on Instagram and Twitter. Check the Bat and Spider boys out wherever you get your podcasts. Those guys are awesome. And yeah, we checked out the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, and we're going to talk about it right now. Now, this film just dropped on Friday on Netflix. It's rated R, hour and 23 minutes long, had a budget of $20 million. They shot it in Bulgaria, not Texas, like a lot of the other films were shot in Texas. But yeah, this film was announced a while ago. The rights were picked up by Legendary Pictures. This was originally conceived as a theatrical release. I think with the pandemic and it kept getting pushed back because this was shot in 2020 that they ended up just selling to Netflix, and that's how we got to see this film. Now, Fede Alvarez produced this film, which gave me a little bit of hope for this film because I like his Evil Dead remake. I like the first Don't Breathe. I even like the second Don't Breathe. I know he didn't direct it, but he produced it. So I thought, well, you know, the Texas Chainsaw franchise is in good hands because it's been gone through several different iterations and not always with the best of success. And some of the movies are downright pieces of shit, like Texas Chainsaw Next Generation, which is a god-awful dumpster fire of a film. Texas Chainsaw 3D, while I can sit down and have fun with that film, has a lot of problems. There's plot holes the size of a tractor trailer going through that film. So yeah, this franchise has definitely had its ups, obviously, with the first film, and the remake I think is pretty good. In the prequel they did the remake, but it also had a lot of downs. So I figured I was optimistic, but I kept my hopes in check on this one. Okay. Now, when I started shooting this in 2020, they actually had a brother directing duel that started shooting this film, and after about a week or two of shooting, they left the project and they brought in David Blue Garcia to direct this film. He basically reshot all the footage they shot and then shot the film himself. We got Sarah Yarkin in this film as Melody. I'm not familiar with any of these actors, really. She's one of the sisters. Her other sister is played by Elsa Fisher. She is Lila, sorry. There are two sisters that are in on this venture. We'll talk about that in a minute. And Mark Burnham plays Old Man Leatherface, because this is a direct sequel to the original 1974 Tobe Hooper film. So this basically, they went all Halloween 2018 on our ass. And basically, we find out, just a quick plot synopsis, and we'll get into my analysis of this thing. Leatherface has been gone since Sally escaped from the family. Leatherface has not been seen. People know about the killings. As a matter of fact, in the beginning of the film, we get a narration by John Larroquette once again returning. But this time to do it in kind of a smart way. It's actually a commercial for this documentary coming on TV about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre from the 70s. And Leatherface was never caught. He just disappeared off the map. So basically, these young kids are buying this. They bought this town, this ghost town, Texas, Harlow, Texas, that's been abandoned. They bought it from the bank, and they're bringing investors in to create their own idealistic kind of utopia in the middle of nowhere. So Melody and Leela go there with these friends, and there's a whole busload of investors coming. And this is where they get into a confrontation with this old lady in this orphanage, and sadly the old lady passes away. But there's somebody still living with that old lady who's been living with her since 74 when the first crimes were committed, and he goes back to the dark side and starts killing them one by one in very gruesome ways. And that is pretty much the plot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. Now, what's it like about this film? Well, let me start off. The kids themselves, at the beginning of the film, I didn't like any of the kids. Although Lila was probably the most sympathetic one. They set her up as somebody who's gone through a major tragedy. She survived a school shooting when she was in high school. But her sister Melody, especially in the beginning of the film, is so off-putting and so talks down to these locals, and she's very standoffish with everybody. And I actually couldn't wait to look for, and so is her other friends. I couldn't wait for Leatherface to show up to start killing these kids. Now, they do grow throughout the film, so I got to give the filmmakers and the writers credit. Melody, for how she starts off, Lila is probably the most sympathetic character once we get to know her backstory, and she's the one that's kind of doesn't want to be there, but her sister kind of dragged her. I had no problem with her character. Melody, I wanted her to die because she was such a bitch. But then she grows. Honestly, I gotta give her, the writers do a smart thing with her. They make her an absolute abhorrent character, and then she gets more likable as the film goes on. But once this old lady dies, who's been running this orphanage, Leatherface pretty much goes back and he cuts her face off. That's how he gets his mask in this film. And this is old man Leatherface here, and he goes back to the house, finds his chainsaw, and basically starts wiping these kids out one by one in very gory ways. This is definitely the goriest Texas Chainsaw Massacre film. At least that's what I think, in my opinion. Watching it last night, I was happily surprised by the amounts of gore and carnage we get on screen. I mean, Leatherface just tears through these kids. And there's some great moments, for sure. The director, it's well directed, it's well lit. The gore is well handled when it's practical. There's some CGI blood in there, I noticed, and some CGI gore that I could have did without. Because these Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's no reason to even have CGI anywhere near this film. Just use practical effects. But for the most part, there's some really cool practical effects work being done here. Leatherface looks awesome. The movie is short. It's to the point. It's kind of bringing the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise back to its roots with a direct sequel to the original. Is it perfect? No. But I was having a great time. The bus scene, the bus kills are great. I love that scene. But after that, once we get into the last 10, 15 minutes, I felt the film started falling apart. And here's part of the problem. They bring Sally Hardesty back from the original film. She's been waiting 50 years. She gets a phone call from this gas station attendant who overhears one of the girls calling for help over a CB. And instead of calling the cops, because he knows what's going on, he calls Sally Hardesty, who packs up a shotgun and a bag of stuff and goes off to Harlow to find Leatherface to get her revenge. And I gotta be honest, there was absolutely, watching this film, no reason to bring Sally Hardesty back. Why did Halloween 2018 bring Jamie Lee Curtis back? Because they were doing a direct sequel to the original? Because Laurie Strode is a very iconic character within horror and the Halloween franchise. Sally Hardesty just happened to be a girl who happened to survive that first film. She was not iconic. She wasn't like this ultimate final girl. There was no reason. I felt her character actually brought the film down, and when they concentrated on her showing up towards the end of the film to kill Leatherface, it just didn't work for me. Like, there's a moment in time where she gets into town finally, and she's going to have her chance to confront Leatherface. She goes into the house. Leatherface just killed like 15 people on his bus with his chainsaw, and there's blood everywhere. She walks upstairs. Leatherface is sitting on the bed. Chainsaw's on the floor. She has a gun pointed right at his head, and she doesn't fire. She's more concerned with this. The film stops dead for her to ask him if he remembers her. And when he doesn't respond, she's like taken back by that, and she never shoots. He gets up and walks out of the room. I'm like, there's no effing way Leatherface would get up and just walk away from this woman. And it just didn't feel true. Like, you waited all this time to get revenge, and you're just worried about if he remembers you. It just didn't feel right. And then her character is totally unnecessary here. They only put her here to have connective tissue to the original film, and they didn't need her. They already set it up with that commercial in the beginning of the film at the gas station about this documentary about the original killings and how Leatherface disappeared. They didn't need Sally Hardesty. She doesn't mean that much to the franchise other than that original film. Other than that, they didn't need to bring her back. And her scenes are just totally pointless and unnecessary, and she never gets her revenge. It's a wasted opportunity anyway. She gets killed like 5 minutes after she gets to Harlow, and then she stays alive magically after Leatherface literally puts his chainsaw through her, has her in the air, shaking her around, and he throws her off of it into like these garbage bags, and she lives a little bit longer enough to load her shotgun and shoot Leatherface once and then give the gun to another girl. There's no freaking way this 60-some-year-old woman who weighs about 90 pounds would have survived being bisected on a chainsaw up in the air, and he's shaking her around and he throws her off into these garbage bags. It just didn't work for me. I thought there was no reason to even have her in this film, but if you were going to do it, at least make her capable. She's not even capable here. She's really not. It's wasted time. It's wasted plot to even have her here. I would have rather just focused on the sisters because by this point, I was on their side, and I wanted Lila to get her chance at redemption because she is going through a lot of PTSD from the school shooting, and I thought that's where it was going to go, and it really doesn't. The girls kind of combine their forces and dispatch Leatherface, which, spoiler alert, he's not dead at the end, and he ends up killing Melody anyway, cuts her head off with a chainsaw as Lila's car drives away. And that's the end of the film. Honestly, I was having a fun time with this film until the last 15 minutes of the film. Once Sally Hardesty gets to Harlow, I thought the film fell apart. The ending didn't work for me at all. Even when it did come down to just Leatherface and the sisters, I thought it was just kind of handled clunkily. It didn't sit right with me. And I was discussing it with Dale after we watched it. And I'm like, the ending kind of kills it for me. I was having a good time until that last 10, 15 minutes. And I thought, yeah, they kind of jumped the shark here in the last 10, 15 minutes. There's definitely a better way to handle that. And they definitely just went in a direction that totally did not have to go. But overall, I think it's a decent Texas Chainsaw movie. It's certainly better than Part 2, in my opinion, because Part 2 is not, I don't really like that film. And I don't like Part 4. I think it's even better than Part 3. I think it's even better than Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D. Overall, I think it's better shot in that. And I like the carnage on display is fantastic. I just think that last 10, 15 minutes, for me anyway, sinks the film down a little bit in the rating that I'm going to give it. So yeah, overall, I would give the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 a 6 out of 10. I enjoyed it. I really did until that last 10, 15 minutes, and then it took me right out of the film. And I just sat there kind of like, why did they even have Sally Hardesty in this film? It was a total waste of time. And I just didn't see the need for it. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022. It's still a fun horror movie. A lot of people are going to enjoy it, and they're just going to have a good time because it's a bloody good time. And I was having a really good time too. It's just the ending kind of just irked me. But overall, yeah, still, we got a new Texas Chainsaw. It's still pretty good. I think they jumped the shark in the last 10 minutes. But overall, yeah, again, 6 out of 10. Have you seen it yet? Leave a comment down below. Let me know. Hit the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share this video. I really would appreciate that. I'll be back with a review for Uncharted. I saw that over the weekend with my son and my wife. And then we're going to go on to The Hitcher and The Hitcher remake. But until then, I hope you're all doing well out there. And bye.